My name is Rachel Osei. I am 39 years old, and on a Thursday morning in October, I woke up to the smell of coffee and burnt toast. Marcus always burnt the toast. Every morning for 9 years. Same setting on the toaster, same result. I had bought 3 different toasters in 9 years, believing the problem was the machine. The problem was never the machine. I lay in bed for a moment with my eyes closed, and I thought, he is going to walk in here in approximately 40 seconds and say the toast got away from him again, and I am going to say, Marcus, you have been making toast for 40 years, and he is going to laugh. Then I opened my eyes, and I remembered. Marcus had been dead 11 months. I got out of bed. I walked to the bedroom door. I opened it. The smell of coffee was real. The smell of burnt toast was real. I walked down the hallway. I stood in the kitchen doorway, and Marcus was standing at the toaster with his back to me in the blue shirt I had given to my brother-in-law 7 months ago, and he turned around when he heard me and said, "The toast got away from me again." I sat down on the kitchen floor. Not dramatically, not a collapse. I simply ran out of the ability to stand. Let me tell you what I know about grief before I tell you what happened next. Grief is not one thing. This is what nobody tells you before you need to know it. They tell you about stages. They give you a framework. They hand you a language for something that does not fit inside language. What they do not tell you is that grief can produce its own reality, that a mind under sufficient pressure and insufficient sleep and 11 months of loss can build something so complete and so specific that it fills a kitchen with the smell of burnt toast and puts a dead man in a blue shirt at the toaster. I know this now. On the morning it happened, I knew none of it. On the morning it happened, I sat on my kitchen floor and looked at Marcus and felt something I had not felt in 11 months. Relief. Complete. Overwhelming. The specific relief of someone who has been carrying something very heavy and has been allowed, for one moment, to put it down. I sat on the floor and I looked at Marcus, and the relief was so total that I did not question the impossibility of what I was seeing. I just sat with him in the kitchen while he made coffee and burned the toast, and the Thursday morning light came through the window the way it always had. Marcus had died of a heart attack on a November morning 11 months earlier. He was 44 years old. He had been healthy, active, the kind of man who ran on Sunday mornings and ate well and had no history of cardiac problems, and who was therefore the last person anyone expected to die on a Tuesday in November while sitting at his desk at work. His colleague had found him, had called the ambulance, had called me. I had driven to the hospital in a state I cannot fully describe because there are no adequate words for driving to a hospital to be told the thing you already know from the quality of the phone call. He had been gone before I arrived. I had not been there. That was the part that lived in me. Not just the loss, the absence at the moment of loss, the fact that he had been alone when it happened and I had been 40 minutes away, not knowing. 11 months of not knowing what his last moments had been. 11 months of the specific guilt of someone who was not there. The object at the center of everything was a mug, his mug, dark blue, chipped on the handle from the time he had dropped it 2 years before, and I had said throw it away, and he had said it still works, and kept it. When I sat on the kitchen floor that Thursday morning and looked up at him, the mug was on the counter beside the toaster. I had not used that mug since he died. It had been in the back of the cabinet behind everything else because I could not throw it away and I could not look at it. It was on the counter, and he was pouring coffee into it, and I was sitting on the floor watching this, and the relief was so enormous that I did not say anything. I did not ask how. I did not question. I just watched him pour coffee into the chipped blue mug, and I thought, this is real. Let it be real.
My sister Sarah arrived at 10. She had a key.
She used it because I had not answered her calls. She found me at the kitchen table, the mug in front of me, the burned toast on a plate I had not eaten, the kitchen empty except for me. She sat down across from me. She looked at the mug. She looked at my face. She did not say anything immediately. Sarah has always understood that some moments require sitting in before they require speaking. Then she said, "Rachel, tell me what happened this morning." I told her. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. She said, "I think we need to call Dr. Amara." Dr. Amara Cole, my therapist. I had been seeing her since 3 weeks after Marcus died, not because I had sought her out, because Sarah had made the appointment and driven me there and sat in the waiting room for the full hour and driven me home. I had been going every 2 weeks since. I had not told Dr. Amara how bad the last month had been. I had not told anyone. I want to be precise about the last month, because the Thursday morning was not the beginning, it was the visible point of something that had been building for 4 weeks. 3 weeks before the Thursday morning, I had stopped sleeping more than 2 hours at a time. 2 weeks before, I had stopped eating consistently. Not dramatically, gradually, the way these things happen when you are managing them without naming them. 1 week before, I had started hearing him in the apartment. Not voices, sounds. The specific sounds of a person sharing a space. Footsteps in the hallway, the sound of the bathroom tap, the particular way he would exhale when he sat down after a long day. I had told myself it was the building settling, old pipes, a neighbor. I had not told anyone. And then Thursday morning I had woken to burn toast and walked into a kitchen where my dead husband was making coffee, and I had sat on the floor in relief, because some part of me had been building toward him for 4 weeks, and Thursday morning it had built something complete enough to be real. Dr. Amara came to my apartment that afternoon. She did not make me come to her office, she came to me. This was not standard. It was the action of a woman who had listened to me every 2 weeks for 11 months and understood that this particular Thursday required her to come to where I was. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same chair Sarah had sat in that morning. She looked at the blue mug, which I had not moved. She did not rush. She asked questions in the careful way of someone building a picture before offering a frame. She asked when I had last eaten a full meal. She asked when I had last slept more than 3 hours. She asked these things first, gently, directly, before she said anything else, because she needed to know I was safe before she could talk about what had happened. I told her. She listened. She noted something in her notebook. Then she looked up and asked me to tell her everything about Thursday morning. When I had told her everything, the 4 weeks, the sounds, the Thursday morning, the relief, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I have thought about every day since. She said, "Rachel, the relief you felt this morning, I want you to understand something about that." She said, "Grief this deep does not produce hallucinations because the mind is broken. It produces them because the mind is trying to give you something you need and have not been allowing yourself to receive." She said, "You have been carrying the guilt of not being there when he died for 11 months. You have been holding that alone. You have not allowed yourself to be comforted because some part of you has decided you do not deserve comfort until you understand what his last moments were." She said, "Your mind gave you a Thursday morning with burnt toast because it knew what you needed." She said it gave you the chance to just be with him, without the absence, without the guilt, without the moment you missed. Just Marcus at the toaster, in the blue shirt, burning the toast the way he always did. I put my hands over my face, not to hide, just to hold myself together while something moved through me. I want to pause here, because what Dr. Amara said next, and what I finally allowed myself to do, is the part I have thought about every day since Thursday. If you have ever carried something you did not know you were allowed to put down, drop a comment below. And subscribe right now, because what happened in the weeks after that Thursday is the part that changed everything about how I carry him now. Dr. Amara stayed for 2 hours. We talked about Marcus, not about his death, about him, about the 9 years, about the burned toast and the chipped mug and the Sunday runs, and the way he laughed, and the specific way he said her name when he walked in the door in the evenings. I talked about him the way I had not allowed myself to talk about him in 11 months. Not in the managed way of someone who is processing grief correctly, in the way of someone who loved a specific person and misses every specific thing about him. Dr. Amara said, "You have been grieving the loss so carefully that you have not been allowing yourself to grieve him, the person, the specific person who burned the toast every morning and kept a chipped mug because it still worked." She said, "Grief is not the absence of the person, it is the presence of everything they were." She said, "Let yourself have both."
She referred me to a more intensive support program. Not because I was in crisis. The Thursday morning had frightened me, but it had not broken me. Because I needed more than 2 weeks between conversations. Because the last month had shown that I had been managing alone at a level that required more support than I had been giving myself. I said yes before she finished the sentence. I started the following week. 3 times a week for 6 weeks. A group program as well as individual sessions. The group was 6 people, all carrying different losses in different shapes, all managing alone at levels that required more. A woman named Gloria, who had lost her son 2 years earlier and had not spoken his name to anyone since the funeral because she believed that speaking it meant accepting he was gone. A man named Thomas, who had not entered his wife's garden in 18 months because the garden had been hers, and entering it felt like trespassing. People who were carrying the specific weight of specific people and had been managing that weight alone because grief is private, and private means silent, and silent means the weight only ever increases. We sat in a room 3 times a week, and we said the names and described the burnt toast and the chipped mugs and the gardens we had not entered. And slowly the weight became something that could be shared. Not lighter exactly, but shared. The blue mug is on the counter now, not at the back of the cabinet, on the counter, beside the kettle, where a mug belongs when it is being used. I drink my coffee from it on Thursday mornings. Not because Thursday is the anniversary of anything, because Thursday was the morning Marcus came back to the kitchen and burned the toast and poured coffee into the chipped mug and reminded me that grief is not the absence of the person, it is the presence of everything they were. I use the mug on Thursdays. And I burn the toast. On purpose. The same setting he always used, the same result, the same smell on a Thursday morning that fills the kitchen before I am fully awake. I do not believe he is there. I know he is not there. But the smell is real, and the mug is real, and the 9 years are real. And the specific person who laughed when I said, "Marcus, you have been making toast for 40 years, is real in every way that the people we love remain real after they are gone. Completely. Specifically. Permanently."
Sarah called me on a Thursday morning 2 months after the program ended. She asked how I was. I said, "I burned the toast." She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "On purpose?" I said, "On purpose." She understood immediately. Sarah always understands. She said, "Good." Then she said, "Rachel, you know he would have been insufferably smug about the toast thing." I laughed. "The real kind, the kind that fills a kitchen." I said, "He absolutely would have." She said, "He would have said, 'I told you it was the setting, not the toaster.'" I said, "He would have said it every Thursday for the rest of our lives." She said, "Yes, he would have." We sat with that for a moment, both of us, on the phone, with the Thursday morning around us. Then she said, "I'll come over for toast next week." I said, "I'll warn you, it will be burned." She said, "I know."
Here is what a Thursday morning and a chipped blue mug taught me. The people we love do not leave us as cleanly as death would suggest. They leave their mug on the counter. They leave their toast setting at the wrong level. They leave their specific laugh and the specific way they said your name, and the specific shape of 9 years woven so completely into the fabric of a life that separating them out would mean pulling at threads that hold everything together. You are allowed to keep all of it, not as a way of not accepting the loss, as a way of honoring what was real. Grief is not the absence of the person, it is the presence of everything they were. Let yourself have both, the loss and the love, at the same time, on a Thursday morning with burnt toast. Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one. And subscribe. I am here every week with a new story. Some things survive everything, even the things that were supposed to erase them. She found her way back.